What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new Football Manager 2016 video. Today it's episode 2 in the potential Wonderkids for Football Manager 2017. Now this is just purely my opinion. If you've not seen episode 1, go and check that out. There was 3 great players in that video. Today we've got another 3 players coming your way, and they are all absolute crackers. How this series works is we look at the players when the game first loads up, and then we'll take a look at them over 5 years time to see how they've developed in their careers. Before we jump into this video though, be sure to drop a like, comment and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like this type of content. Let's jump straight into the video. Okay, so as you can see, we are starting off with the first player, 19 years of age. He will be obviously 20 years of age on FM17. It's Dahoud from Borussia Mönchengladbach. Now Liverpool were heavily linked with this guy throughout the summer, so I thought, why not take a look at him on Football Manager 2017 and 2016 and see what he could potentially be like in Football Manager 2017, see if he could potentially be a wonderkid. Now as the game loads up, he is apparently a centre midfielder who likes to play the advanced playmaking role, and you can see why. So we've got some of his key attributes highlighted here. First touch 16, passing 14, technique 16, work rate 16, vision 15, 15 for teamwork, 15 for composure, only 11 for flair, but it's not one of the key attributes, 12 for decisions. Obviously some of the really good attributes on his his little record here, obviously aggression also 16, agility 16, and stamina also very high, hitting 16 as well. So for 19 years of age, this guy is quite, he's quite well developed already, and he pretty much would slot straight into any team really. Obviously he's a Borussia Mönchengladbach first team, choice player, and it says a lot when a Premier League club who are going to be chasing the top 4 want him for the first team. So obviously we already know this guy is pretty decent. He's only valued at 3.1 million. I'm quite sure that'll be higher at the start of Football Manager 2017. We'll just take a look at anything else. So his contract wise, he's only actually on £1,400 per week, which is obviously very, very low indeed. So if you're looking to buy a player, this guy could actually be quite realistic, to be perfectly honest with you, because his wages are low, his his value is only 3.1 million. If you put it like a £10 million bid in, I'm quite sure you may end up being able to get this guy. Not overly confident on that, but there is a good chance that you'll probably be able to get him. Obviously, as I said, his value will probably be a bit higher in Football Manager 2017, but he'll definitely be one of the players that you need to keep your eye out when the game first comes out. Let's jump 5 years ahead and see how this 19-year-old develops into a 24-year-old player and see how good he is. Okay, so we are 5 years ahead. As you can see, it is June 2020. Dahoud is actually at a different Bundesliga team now. He's at Bayer Leverkusen. He's valued at £17 million. I thought he may have been valued a bit higher than that, but let's just take a look at some of his attributes anyway. So as you can see, they have gone up on a whole. Some of them, keep staying the same, but first touch has gone up to 17, passing 16, technique 16. A couple of 17s down there in the mental column, with 16 for composure, 16 for aggression, which was already the same, agility and stamina also staying at 16, but I think it's the other attributes around them that have improved quite significantly. So obviously it goes without saying he has improved quite a lot as a player. We'll take a look at when he actually joined Leverkusen. So he actually joined at the start of this season for 16.25 million, and he's actually made quite a few appearances, but we're going to go back to his Borussia Mönchengladbach times just to see how he's been developing. So in the first campaign, he actually made 31 league appearances, with 12 appearances in continental football, only racking up 3 goals. He actually got 11 assists, which is pretty decent, and a 7.05 average match rating in all competitions. So quite impressive, to be fair, for what would have been a 19-year-old at the time. Move on to the next season. He made 27 league appearances, so actually a few less. 13 starts in the continental football, with 2 starts in cup football, a couple of appearances from the bench as well, getting 6 goals in all competitions, 10 assists, 2 player of the match performances, and a 7.38 average match rating across all competitions. So yet again, improvements there from Dahoud. From his first season, he would have been 20, turning 21 in this season, so he's growing with age. Move a season ahead, he made 30 league appearances, 27 starts, 1 appearance in the cup from the bench, and 1 from the start. No continental football this time round for Borussia Mönchengladbach. He scored 4 goals, getting 7 assists, so a bit down on previous years. He got 2 player of the match performances. He's not actually racked up a red card, I don't think, just yet. No, he hasn't, to be fair to him. So, you know, discipline-wise, he's actually not too bad. 7.16 average match rating, so I think that's come down across all competitions, at least, for that season. Then in his final season at Borussia Mönchengladbach, he made 30 league appearances, all of which being starts. He made 5 appearances in total in the Cup, 3 from the start, 2 from the bench, and 6 appearances in continental football. He racked up 8 goals across them games, 9 assists, 3 player of the match performances. He actually got his first red card, and that came in the league. He got a 7.09 average match rating in all competitions, so that's probably his most solid season, I'd say, at least, you know, just in terms of the amount of goals and assists. And that obviously warranted his move to Bayer Leverkusen, where this season he's made 31 league appearances, 4 appearances in the Cup, however 3 of which were from the bench, and 7 appearances in continental football. He picked up 3 goals across all appearances. He actually took a penalty, but he missed it. He also got 12 assists, 3 player of the match performances, no red cards, only 2 yellow cards to his name, and a 7.08 average match rating. So he's a very, very consistent midfielder. If you want someone that's just going to hold down that centre mid role and play at such a consistent level, you know, above 7 in pretty much every single match, this is the guy to go for. Is he injury prone? That's the question. Wow, he is. Oh my word. How many injuries has this guy got? So all of these are since the game's been loaded. To be fair, there's not any major ones I'm looking at. I think the longest one was 6 weeks, which was a fractured wrist. But wow, this guy gets injuries. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 injuries across 5 seasons. He's averaging 3 injuries a season. And, you know, I'm not even going to bother to add up how long he would have missed. A lot of them are in training as well. Actually, quite a few are in a match as well. I can't really say a lot of them are in training. It's probably equal in terms of balanced. But some of these, you know, some of them are just common things like a cold and a stubbed toe, but then some of them are like, you know, and food poisoning, but then some are like quite serious injuries, sprained ankle, groin strain, fractured wrist. You know, he's got a bad injury record, which I didn't actually know about this guy. Whether that's the case, whether he is an actual injury-prone player or he's just been really unlucky during the save, I'm not too sure, but maybe that is something you do have to take into consideration. In terms of his contract, he's not on the highest amount of money. I'll touch on one other thing in just a moment. He's actually just short of 60 grand per week with 59. He's actually got a bio clause, this is what I wanted to touch upon, of £26 million. Now, if you go to his value, he's valued at £17 million. In Football Manager, you tend to have to pay double the price anyway, so that's actually quite a, you know, decent buyout clause. And if I was managing a team during this time, I'll probably go for it because, to be fair to him, he does give you consistent performances. And the fact that, this is one other thing I want to mention, the fact he's, you know, missing this many games in a season, yet he's still playing pretty much 30 games every single season, and in the Bundesliga you only actually have 34 matches anyway. I think I'm right in saying that maybe 35, no, it wouldn't be 35, either 34 or 36 games per season. And he's making like 30 league appearances every single season. It's a very, very impressive record for him. Maybe he just times it right. Maybe he always gets injured over the Christmas break that they have there. I'm not too sure. But obviously, if you are looking for a decent centre midfielder who can also play defensive mid and attacker mid, Dahoud is your man. Okay, so our next guy is going to be quite familiar to quite a lot of people. I was going to say just Man United fans, but to be fair, he's made a few appearances, I believe, for Manchester United, so I'm quite sure, you know, quite a lot of the English fan base probably know about this guy, especially with how much United rave over him. It's Timothy Fosu-Mensah, I believe I've got that right, or Fosu-Mensah. I'm not too sure on the last 2 parts of his name, but we all know this guy. He's a very how do I put it? He's very like versatile. He can play centre mid, he can play defensive mid, and he can also play centre back. He plays centre back and centre mid really well, to be fair to him. Defensive mid, he's probably still learning the trade. He can also play attacker mid, not very well, and he can actually play right back, but again, not very well. When you load up Football Manager 2016, he's aged 17 years of age, so obviously he'll be 18 years of age when you load up Football Manager 2017. I feel like this guy could have a real good, potential ability in Football Manager 2017. If he does develop right, obviously I do feel like he could go on to be one of the, centre-back wonder kids in this game. We'll just take a look at some of his attributes. So it says he's actually best suited to being a midfielder. I'm not too sure if that will change in Football Manager 2017, but, we're going to go off this one, and apparently, ball-winning centre mid is his position. You're looking at stats anywhere between 11 and 14 for the, the key ones anyway. Obviously, everything else is a bit lower down, but as we've seen with Dahoud, they do tend to improve them type of stats. So, you're looking at marking 11, tackling 14. I'll just point out the 14s: bravery 14, acceleration 14, strength 14. So he's quite a physical player, which obviously goes well with the fact that he is a ball-winning midfielder who likes to defend. Not too sure. Yeah, it's defend that's probably best suited to him. We'll take a look at his contract, actually. So he's actually only on 1,200 per week. I actually say only, but that's, it's still quite a lot of money, to be fair. But compared to the other players, you look at like Messi earning like something like 500 grand a week. You get me point. He's valued at 425,000 pounds, which is obviously very, very cheap. I'm probably guessing that you'll be able to get him on loan in Football Manager 2017, or you could probably pick him up for quite cheap. I'm just not too sure if he's a wonder kid, and Manchester United probably then wouldn't want to sell him. You see it so often in Football Manager 2016 where there's wonder kids valued at like $1 million. You put a bid in and then the club say, no, we want 50, 60 million. You're like, well, that's just unrealistic. This could happen with this guy, but obviously we're going to have to wait until Football Manager 2017 to see that. We'll just jump now 5 years ahead and see how Fosu-Mensah does actually progress in his career and see if he turns into the wonder kid that he has the potential to be. Okay, so we are 5 years ahead now, and as you can see, he's actually changed clubs to Arsenal. I believe that was only this season though that happened. We'll come to that in just a moment. Obviously, as you can see, he has developed very, very well as a player. A lot of his attributes are at a fairly decent level, to be fair to him. And he now is mainly a centre-back, whereas last time he mainly liked to play centre midfield. He is now more of a centre-back, which is obviously more realistic in terms of what he actually done in, real life with Manchester United. So he's a ball-playing centre-back, which you can kind of gather, considering the fact he can also play midfield. You'd expect him to be a decent player on the ball in possession. Obviously, his stats have vastly improved from like 11s to 14s to now, he's reaching 16s and 15s for the majority of the key attributes. Anticipation 16, strength 16, stamina 16, pace 16, position 16. Some really, really good attributes there for what you want in a defender. Tackling obviously 15, marking 14, passing 15, which is obviously an integral part of that ball playing defender role. So obviously this guy has vastly improved, as I mentioned before. He's valued at £27.5 million, age only 22 years of age, so he has got a lot of more potential to come. He's still very, very young. You could still consider him a wonder kid. To be fair, 22 years of age is probably only just pushing out to that kid's range. So, he's still got a lot of development to do just ahead of him. We'll take a look at his career stats so far. So where we left off was here. He didn't actually play a single game for that first season. Actually, he's not actually played for Manchester United. He did make a few appearances, but we'll touch on that in just a moment. He actually got loaned out to Ajax. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. Is that Ajax's second team? I'm not too sure, is it? Yeah, it's Ajax's B team, right. So, he was loaned out to Ajax. No, actually, scrap that. He was loaned out to Feyenoord. I don't even know where he got Ajax. So, the first season he was loaned out to Feyenoord. He made 4 appearances, getting 1 goal, which obviously isn't really what you want to see. You want to be seeing the defensive stats, which was a 1.75 tackles per game, fouls 10, fouls against 5. There's not too many stats there to actually, really break down, to be perfectly honest with you. He didn't actually get that much football, you can't really lie about that. He didn't get much football in Feyenoord. Probably would have liked to have played some more games. He made 2 appearances in continental football for them as well, so 6 appearances on the whole, 6.77 average match rating. So probably not the best of first seasons to look at, but it does go on to have improvements, as you'll be able to see in just a moment. This is where I got Ajax from. So we moved to Ajax. but he was also playing for Ajax's B team, but he didn't actually make an appearance for them, so it's kind of strange why that's on there. He made 24 appearances in the league for Ajax's first team, 23 of which were starts, 1 appearance from the bench. He actually got 2 goals and 2 assists, so you wonder whether he actually played that midfield role for them, rather a defender. He made 1.91 tackles per match, getting a 6.92 average match rating in the league. He actually made quite a few appearances in continental football, which would suggest Ajax actually got far in either the Champions League or the Europa League that season. He actually scored in that as well, so this is really making me feel like he was actually a midfielder. He actually got 3 man of the match performances in just 12 games in European football, which is good to see, and a 7.54 average match rating in European football. So a really, really solid season for what would have only been an 18-year-old at the time. Really, really impressive with that record. He then actually went on to Wolfsburg, so he should literally just get moved from, place to place, season after season. United really didn't give him a fair chance, in my opinion. He was moved to Wolfsburg, obviously, in the Bundesliga, where he made 16 league appearances, but not many of them were starts, to be perfectly honest with you. 5 starts, 11 appearances from the bench. He only got 1 assist, and this does suggest to me now that he was actually a defender, because the tackles per match is significantly higher, 5.23 tackles per game, not as many goals, not as many assists, 6.78 average match rating in the league alone. He made 5 starts in the Cup, again getting 1 player of the match performance, and again the tackles were on and up, so this is where you feel like the change to centre-back did take place. He got a 7.22 average match rating in the Cup competitions over in Germany. He made 11 appearances in total in continental football, which would have been 6 starts and 5 appearances from the bench. Again, you get the impression he was a defender. 6.80 average match rating, a 6.88 in all competitions during his season at Wolfsburg, and then his final loan deal seen him go out to Sporting Lisbon in Portugal, so literally he's being moved all across Europe. For Lisbon, he made, for Sporting, he made 22 starts in the league with 7 appearances from the bench. But then again, it looks like he may have switched back to midfield this time, because his tackles per match is significantly down and he's getting goals and assists yet again. 6.85 average match rating in the league. Continental football, 4 appearances from the start with 7 from the bench. Again, that suggests Sporting may have got far, or either they had to play a lot of qualifiers. He got 1 goal. Again, you're getting the impression he was a midfielder for Sporting, so he's literally getting moved across Europe, and he's getting moved across the pitch. No one really knows where to play this guy. Anyway, overall, he made, what would that be? That would be 40 appearances, 26 starts, 14 from the bench, and a 6.82 average match rating across all of them. And then this season, he actually made 3 appearances for Manchester United, all of which were from the bench. He got 1 assist. Actually, he played a 1 cup match, which the assist did come in, and a 6.60 average match rating across them, 1 appearance and 3 appearances from the bench for United before, obviously, he must have been sold late on in the window. Probably a deadline day deal, knowing Arsenal, but as I said, he got sold to Arsenal for £22 million. And we were looking before, he's now valued at £27.5 million. His value has actually gone up, despite the fact he's not actually played that much football. As you can see, only 3 league starts for him, only 6 starts in the Cup, and then the rest of his appearances, which were 10 overall, actually in May. 10 appearances from the bench for Arsenal. So he really doesn't actually play that much football, to be perfectly honest with you. At Arsenal, 6.85 average match rating across all competitions. They're obviously playing him as a defender, I feel, obviously with the tackles per match much higher than the midfield role that, he has been playing at some of his clubs. We'll take a look at his injuries before we move on. So again, like Dahoud, he does actually have quite a few injuries. None really significant though. Couple of 6-weekers, which were, it's actually the same injury, strained knee ligaments, and then the majority of them are just colds and flus and concussions and bruised shins and stuff like that. You got a bruised head. Don't really know that happens, but, some of these injuries are pretty stupid, to be perfectly honest with you. As for his contract, I think I may have mentioned this, he's on 53 grand per week, and I've already mentioned that he's worth £27.5 million. With Hull City interested in him, not too sure if Hull City will be able to pay that asking price, but obviously they're worth, it's worth having a go. We'll just see if he's actually won anything for Manchester United. So he actually won the Community Shield. I highly doubt he actually played any part in that. He won the European Under-19 Championships with the Netherlands. He actually got his international debut in 2017. He won the German Cup with Wolfsburg, and again he won the Community Shield with Manchester United. Not too sure if he would have featured in that. Maybe that was the cup competition that he did actually play in for Manchester United. But obviously, I feel like he could have developed a bit better, maybe if he was handled a bit better, if he got an actual position nailed down rather than just moving him from position to position, then maybe he would have actually found a bit more consistency. But obviously I do feel like Fosu-Mensah is going to definitely be a wonder kid in Football Manager 2017. Okay, so moving on to our final player right now, and it is Thiago Maia. I'm not too sure how you say his last name. Again, if you watch my videos, you know I'm not good with pronouncing names, but that's what I'm going to go with. He's a defensive midfielder, aged only 18 years of age. Obviously, he'll be 19 in Football Manager 2017. And to be fair, this guy becomes he honestly just becomes like one of the best defensive mids in the entire game, to be perfectly honest with you. He starts off at Santos, obviously, with some of the, famous players of the past, Neymar, and obviously some really decent wonder kids that come through right now. You're looking at Gabriel Barbosa's also there with them. There's been other wonder kids in previous years that have just come through from Santos, so it's a really good club to always look at the start of Football Manager games, just to see who they've got coming through. But obviously this guy is one of the guys you need to keep your eye on. When we start the game, he's, a defensive midfielder. I can't actually show you what role's best for him, because obviously I've not actually scouted the player. But obviously you don't even need that, to be honest. You just look at his attributes and you can see they are pretty nicely well-rounded. For an 18-year-old, I don't think I've seen that many in that medium range, of between like 11 and 15. I don't think I've seen that many stats in that range for such a young guy. It's quite incredible, to be perfectly honest with you. He's valued at 1.6 million. He's actually earning £1,200 per week. This guy can be picked up for a real bargain, I feel. He has just signed a new contract. That's the only concern. But then you look at that, he's got a minimum fee release clause of £5.75 million. So you can, as I said, you can pick him up for next to nothing. That is domestic clubs only. That's the problem. So when I say that, you've got to be a team within, Brazil. But then if they're looking, if they're happy to sell them to their rivals, because obviously if you sell them to a domestic club, you're looking at, it's potentially going to be rivals. If they're happy to sell them for that little to them, you could probably get them for pretty much the same price for a team that's going to have nothing to do with Santos. If they're willing to sell it to the next door neighbours for 5.75 million, what are they going to say if, Manchester United come knocking with £6 million? They are not going to turn that down. In Football Manager 2017, he's probably going to be a bit more well-known and a bit more, advanced in his price, so he'll probably be a bit more expensive, but honestly, it's worth, going in for this guy, as you're about to see. We're going to jump 5 years ahead and see how this guy develops. He will obviously be 23 years of age in 5 years' time. Let's go and do that right now. I said this guy becomes one of the best in the world, and I was not wrong. He is at Manchester United, valued at £36.5 million, earning £145,000 per week. So that's £6 million. Little deal that I suggested you make. Doesn't seem like such a bad one right now, does it? He's best suited as a deep-lying playmaker. One thing I want to point out, he's not happy because he wants to be in the Champions League. So obviously this guy does have a very, very high targets for himself. We'll highlight the key attributes for his role. So first touch 16, passing 16, technique 16, vision 16, positioning 16, teamwork 14, decisions 15, composure 14, balance 15. And then there's honestly, when someone's worst attribute is 9 for free kick taking, that you don't need every player to be a good free kick taker. You've got one hell of a player on your hands. I'm guessing the average attribute there is probably 14, maybe even 15. It's absolutely sensational. This guy, for 23 years of age, he's still got a lot of learning to do, a lot more maturing to do, and he's going to become let's just give him another 2-3 years time, he'll be worth like 40, 50, 60 million pounds. For a defensive midfielder, that's absolutely exceptional. We'll take a look at his career stats. So he actually stayed at Santos for quite a significant amount of time. So obviously that's where we joined the save. He made 31 league appearances. Obviously, we can't see too much into this because it is Santos. I've not got that league loaded. But 31 appearances. He doesn't actually score a goal, but he gets a 7.08 average match rating, which is, pretty decent for what would he have been. He would have been 18 years of age, was he? Then, you move into next season. Only 22 appearances, but he makes appearances in the continental football over in Brazil. 30 appearances in total, 3 goals, 5 assists, 1 player of the match performance, 7.21 average match rating in all competitions. Very, very, very good for what would have been a 19-year-old. 28 league appearances the next season, 5 goals, 3 assists, 7.22 average match rating. Then in his final season at Santos, he doesn't actually make too many appearances, but I believe that will be because doesn't the Brazilian league start at a different time to every other league? I believe the Brazilian league starts in December. I'm not 100% sure if I'm right on that, and if it does, then obviously he's made halfway through the season, then been sold. I should be able to see to Bayer Leverkusen for still what is a very cheap price, considering this is 3-4 seasons on from when we loaded the game, for 8.25 million. This is what I'm on about, guys. You can buy this guy for next to nothing, and Man United, they should have realised that, because as I said, Leverkusen bought him for 8.25 million. He went on to have an exceptional season, 34 league appearances, 7 goals, 5 assists, 1 player of the match performance, 7.21 average match rating in the league. He made, 16 appearances in continental football, that's a lot of appearances for one season. 8 appearances that was international football. Continental football, he makes 8 appearances, 1 goal, 2 assists. And in all competitions, 7.25 average match rating is very, very decent, especially for a defensive midfielder who doesn't tend to get involved in goals that much. But he's making quite a few goals himself. And actually, to be fair, I've just said he doesn't get many goals. He does. He gets 7 goals in 34 appearances, which is it's pretty much 1 in 5. For a defensive midfielder, you cannot complain with that, because they're not there to actually score goals. They're there to stop goals. So when he's actually adding goals to your team, you can't go wrong. And then obviously, as I said, United should have bought him when they could have had the chance at Santos. Instead, they had to wait a little while longer and pay an extra £24 million just one season later. They bought him for £32.5 million from Bayer Leverkusen. He made 35 starts in the league this season for United, getting 5 assists. He didn't actually get a goal for United. He got 7 man of the match performances, which is exceptional. 7.55 average match rating in the league, which again is a very, very good record to have. Continental football, 10 appearances. He did actually score goals in the Europa League or Champions League, wherever United would have been in. 2 goals, 1 assist, 7.67 average match rating. So once again, he's one of these guys like Dahoud who just constantly performs at such a consistent level, and that's all you can really ask for your defensive midfielder. I hear a lot of people saying, if you don't notice your defensive midfielder, then they're having a really good game, because you shouldn't really have to notice them. They should literally just break the ball up and give it away. And, if you're noticing your defensive midfielder, it tends to be because they're doing something wrong. So, obviously, if he's performing at this consistent level, it's just a guy that you need to have in your team. I feel like even in this save, he's worth, £36.5 million? I feel like he's going to be even better in Football Manager 2017 because more people are getting onto him. So that could even be like £50 million in Football Manager 2017. This guy is he's going to be one of the best defensive mids in Football Manager 2017 in my opinion. We'll just take a look at his injuries. He's got a lot better record than the other two. Granted, he still gets injured, but not anywhere near enough. And, the biggest injury he did actually get was a sprained ankle, which only kept him off for 5 weeks, which is still not ideal, but it's not nothing compared to the other injuries that the other guys had. We've already touched on his contract, £145 per week. We've already touched on his value. We'll see if he's actually won anything. We shall go to, what is it? Is it landmarks? Yeah, it's landmarks. So he won the Olympic Games like in real life with Brazil, which is good to see. He made his international debut for Brazil in 2018, so he actually waited a bit longer than I would have thought he would have to. He actually got his first international goal in the same year, but it was not in the same match. It was against Japan, and the only silverware he has to his name was actually with Manchester United in the Community Shield. Obviously, he does have the Olympic gold medal, but I mean real silverware with the club. He actually only won something with Manchester United, which again, as I said, was the Community Shield. So obviously he'll be looking to build upon that, and that's obviously why he wants to leave Manchester United. This guy has got high aspirations, high targets in life. As you can tell, he's only 23 years of age. He is going to probably move to Real Madrid or Barcelona and just be on like 300 grand a week and just probably be the best player in the game. But that's why you need to sign this guy, and that's why this guy is going to be another Wonderkid on Football Manager 2017. That is all for this video. If you have enjoyed, drop a like, comment and subscribe. Let me know any other players you want me to take a look at. I've got plenty more written down anyway, so if there is no suggestions, don't worry, I do have other ideas. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.